Oh, yes, definitely. And I don't know. Okay, buckle up because I have a wild story. The actual birth was great, but it was after. Okay, so actual birth, went really well. So you hear like all these stories of like having an epidural, not having an epidural, having a home birth, giving in the hospital. Well, I hate pain. And once, like when I found out I was pregnant, I was like, I'm going to get that epidural. Like I already know. So I was like, yeah, I definitely like want to give birth in the hospital and everything. And so I basically was full term. I was like 40 weeks and 2 days, and so I got induced. I know everyone has different opinions on it, but we had a lot of peace about me getting induced, and even like my mother-in-law was like, "Are you sure you want to do that?" And so we just felt like peace about it. We're like, "Okay, I'm gonna get induced." So I remember I went in. So he was born March 17th. So we went in the day before at 5 p.m. It was a Wednesday, and so basically, we're getting into all the details. So first, they have to like soften your cervix, and so they had to give me a medicine that would soften my cervix. I think I was already dilated to like 1 centimeter, and the nurse, I was there overnight. So she would give it like 3 doses, like every 4 hours, and so she gave me the first dose. And I was like, fine. I was like, okay, it feels like period cramps, like mild period cramps, like I'm good. And then she gave me the second dose, and I don't think this medicine is really supposed to like create contractions. Like you have Pitocin that will create contractions, and they were gonna give that to me in the morning.
Hmm.
Oh my gosh, this medicine was giving me like these crazy contractions, and I was in so much pain. I feel like my husband Andrew felt so bad for me. And they're
Oh.
like, rest, because like sleep, rest, 'cause, like you're gonna have a hard day tomorrow. And I was in so much pain, like I literally could not sleep. And the nurse came in and gave me the third dose, I think, if I remember. And I really just like wanted the epidural, but for some reason in my mind I felt like, oh, I need to take it out till the morning and then get it in the morning. I think it's at this point it's like 4 a.m. and I don't know what it's called. I don't know what all these medicines are called. But there's a medicine like pain relief, but it kind of just like takes the edge off. And to give a backstory, like I've never drank, so I don't know what being drunk feels like. And
Hmm.
as she's like, I was like, yeah, I'll take this pain medicine and then go from there. And as she's inserting it like into my IV, she was like, "It's gonna feel like you're drunk." And I was like, "Great! I've never felt like that before." um, and so like I felt like I opened my eyes and the room was spinning, and so I just
Oh.
closed my eyes. It helped for literally 5 minutes, and then after that, I was still in pain. But
Oh,
I
that
still,
sucks.
like, felt like the room was spinning, and so I just, like yeah, I know. So I just kept my eyes closed, and eventually it wore off. I felt a little loopy, but it was really weird, and I was like, "Never again." So I know now for the future, like, when I have another baby, I'm definitely not getting that. And so I told her, I remember I was like, "I definitely want that epidural," and it was, like, getting to 6 a.m. And then also you have to, like, go through a bag of fluids. I don't
Hmm.
know all the science behind it, but you have to go through a bag of fluids before you can get an epidural. So I did that, and I think I remember telling her, like, "Hey, I'm in a lot of pain." And I think she was like I think because I had been on my side, and she was like, "Oh, just, like, switch your position or whatever." And that obviously, like, wasn't working, and so
Yeah.
I remember the anesthesiologist came in, and also they tell your husband or partner or whoever is in there with you to leave the room. And I think while you get the epidural,
I'm
I think it's
sorry.
because
I'm
they will.
sorry.
What?
You're sounding a little like muffled a little bit.
You hear me? Hello? Testing. Testing.
Not to me. Oh, okay. Okay, keep going.
Continue. Okay. So when you're getting the epidural, they tell your partner or husband or whoever's with you to leave the room, and I'm pretty sure it's because they would probably faint because it's just not a pretty sight. So I'm like bending over because you have to bend over. I'm like hugging my nurse, and she's looking at the contraction tracker. She's like, "Yeah, you're having contractions like every minute or two," and I was, "Yeah, I told you." um, so I get the epidural, and for me, it was magic. Like, I wasn't in any pain anymore. I could finally sleep. And the new nurse came in because it was like 7 a.m. at this point.
Mhm.
And she like introduced herself. I was able to sleep. And at some point, my doctor came in and broke my water, and I was at 3 centimeters. Like, I've heard some induction stories like take so long, but my birth went really fast. And so I progressed like really fast. And so she came in at like 7 and introduced herself. I was part of 3, and like I said, my doctor came in and broke my water. And at like 11:30, I was feeling pressure down there, and like it kind of feels like you have to go to the bathroom, but it's just like obviously like way more intense.
Mhm.
And so I told her, and so I did like practice pushes with her. And like I'm introverted, and I'm a peacemaker.
Yeah.
And now I've learned my lesson to like call them when you need something, because that's what they're there for. But I would feel pressure down there, and then no one would be in there, and feel bad for calling them. And Andrew's like, "Babe, that's what they're there for." And so I finally like got over that, and so now especially I've gotten over that. But my nurse came in and like she did practice pushes with me. And I was basically almost at 10 centimeters. And I've heard stories of women pushing for like hours and hours, especially if it's their first baby. But I guess I was just determined to get him
You're
out
like, no.
because, yeah, I pushed like several times with my nurse, and then they're waiting on my doctor to come. And um, I think they told me I pushed him out in 2 pushes with my doctor. So she wasn't
Yeah.
even there for that long, and I pushed him out in 30 minutes,
Wow.
which
You know,
also to note, he was almost 9 pounds. So I don't know how
wow.
I did that. And they were amazed, like, "Is this your first baby?" And I was like, "Yeah." So I pushed him out in 30 minutes, and
Wow. That's crazy
yeah,
because
that's my birth story.
that's something I keep hearing is like being able to push their baby out like 2 pushes like that's what I pray
Yeah,
for
I
whenever it's time
know.
for me to push out my baby. I want like two
Oh,
pushes and done.
definitely. Definitely. And, like, I definitely, like, pushed for longer, but it was, like, with my nurse. Then when my doctor came, it was 2 pushes apparently. But no, being a mom has been so good. I'm gonna tell, like, one last story
Mhm.
for this question, but I had a really hard time, like, starting off. I was just like, obviously you're tired because you have a newborn, but I was just so tired and just felt foggy and off. I was feeling pains down there. And okay, so one night I was like 4 days postpartum. I was kind of feeling like shivery, like you having a fever. And I kind of just ignored it. I was on pain medicine. Um, and so that was like breaking my fevers. Like in the morning, I felt fine. I was like, I'm just tired. And then that night, and we kept an eye on it and like told a doctor, an OB that was on call. They're like, just keep an eye on it, and if you get your fever again and it goes up, it's like 104 or whatever, go to ER. And so we had my father-in-law come over that night to watch our baby so we could get some sleep. And that was like a major God thing because I don't know what we would have done. So I'm 5 days postpartum. I go to sleep. And I wake up, and also at first we thought I had like a virus or a cold or something. And so my husband was sleeping in another room just to be safe. And So I wake up at like 1 a.m. I'm so hot at this point. I'm shivering. I know I have a fever. And I remember I had to go to the bathroom. And I was so like hot and cold that I was like, if I get up right now, like I'm gonna fall over. So I called my husband. He wakes up immediately, like praise God. And I was like, Andrew, like I have to go to the bathroom, but like I'm gonna fall over. So he goes to the bathroom, and I sit down after that, and he takes my temperature, and it's 104. So obviously he
Mm-mm.
calls, and
Yeah.
he already like made up his mind, like I'm taking you to the ER. And then I felt like super nauseous, and I was like, I'm literally about to throw up right now. And I got sick. I also got that over with, unfortunately. And then he took my temperature again. It shot up to 107. Like,
Wow.
I have never known anyone that has had that high of a fever. So obviously it's so serious. So my
Yeah.
father-in-law was there taking care of our baby, which is like a lifesaver. And so he takes me to the hospital. It's like 3 a.m. at this point. And I, for some reason, was like, oh, we're gonna have to wait a long time. No, like we got there, I told them what was going on, and within like a minute or two, they called me back. And yeah, so we finally like got a room in the ER. They gave me fluids and some antibiotics. And basically to sum it up, I was there like all day. My fever like was going down. It's like 101, 102, 101, 102. And then let's see. Oh, and then my heart rate was like resting was like 130s to 150s. It was
Oh,
crazy. I think it was
wow.
because it was so bad. I think it was because I was really hot, and I feel like they were really taking it seriously, and they like obviously kept checking in on me, and they kept giving me fluids and everything. But basically, since I was 5 days postpartum, they're like, we're gonna put you on the labor and delivery floor on the postpartum part of the floor, because after you have your baby, they like move you to another room on the
Hmm.
postpartum part of the floor. So like we're gonna move you to the postpartum part of the floor. And they're waiting on a room, and apparently there was no rooms, and so many women were in labor, and I was like, well, I'm glad I already have my baby. And
Yeah.
so yeah, so we finally, at like 3, 4 in the afternoon, they're like, we found your room. So they moved me to the room. And I was there for like an hour or two. And we told the girl I was checking my vitals, we were like, her fever has been up and down like all day. And she comes in. It's like probably 7 o'clock because it was like the night shift now. So the girl comes in and told her, and she checks my fever. It's shot up to almost 107 again. I think it was like 106.9 or something.
Mhm.
She freaks out. And then all of a sudden, there's like, Andrew counted, there was like 15 people in the room that brought in a crash cart.
Oh,
And I was like,
geez.
you see this on like Grey's Anatomy and stuff.
Yeah.
I was kind of freaking out. And so they basically felt like they like dunked me nice. They put so many cold rags and ice packs and ice all over me, and like gave me more medicine to bring down the fever, and gave me more fluids and everything. And an ICU doctor like introduces herself, and she was like, we're gonna go take you to get a CT scan, which I never had that done before. And then she's like, and after that, we're gonna take you to a floor that's a step below ICU. And I was like, oh my gosh. Now obviously I was out of it, but I was like anxious the entire time. And the nurse that had checked my temperature, she was like, let me know if you feel like you're about to have a seizure. And actually, my mom has epilepsy, so I've
Uh-huh.
seen seizures. And I was like, oh my gosh, freaking out. But obviously, I did not have a seizure, so that was great.
That's good. Yeah.
They take me to go get a CT scan. They take me to the floor, and I just like felt so bad. Like we were just like, me and Andrew were kind of like laughing at my situation because they're like moving me to this floor, and there's like all these old men like struggling. Seemed like they're connected to all these things and like hanging by a thread. I remember we were in our room, and this other nurse in another room is yelling at this old man like, tell me what your name is, where are you? And we are like, what is our life? So anyways, to sum it up, I was there for a couple days. They gave me fluids and a really strong IV antibiotic.
Mhm.
Basically, what was wrong with me is I had a UTI that turned
Oh,
into a kidney infection because my uterus is still really enlarged and it was pressing against my right kidney and it almost turned into sepsis. That's what
jeez.
happened to me. And then eventually I got moved to the postpartum floor and then I was able to go home. So I was there for like 5 days. Yeah, it was crazy. So I had a very rough start to postpartum life.
Yeah.
But
S-
no,
So
but
did
being a
all that
mom,
so did all that
when
happen from giving birth? Was that the
so
cause of it?
I think I think I already had a UTI like before I gave birth. And it
Gotcha.
just probably like progressed.
Mhm.
Um and I feel like that's partly why we felt such peace about getting induced because we were like, what would have happened if I was still pregnant and I had that high of a
Mhm.
fever? Like we were talking to a friend later and she had a friend that had like a really high fever like that and her baby she was still pregnant and like her baby died. And so I'm like, I can imagine like what would have happened. So I think I already had it. I've learned now postpartum, I think my body is just prone to UTIs. It's really annoying. But yeah, I think it was already like I had it like before I gave birth. It just got worse. But yeah, that was really long winded. But that was like my whole start to my postpartum journey.